Okay, we're getting ready to do a leak repair in one of these units. First thing you do whenever you have to work on anything that's positively charged with water is you have to find an isolation valve. In buildings like this, it's controlled by one valve, the whole building. So in that instance, you would have to get authorization from the property management to make sure that they give sufficient notice to all the tenants that their water will be going off. Each unit's been rerouted in the past, and when they rerouted it, they did them all individually, and somebody took the time to put a few labels on here, which helped me with the process of elimination. I had a 50-50 chance. I discovered that this is the valve that controls the unit we'll be doing the work on. So what we do is we just turn the ball valve 90 degrees to the supply pipe, and that lets you know it's off. Once again, parallel, valve on. 90 degrees, perpendicular, valve off. Okay, once we located and isolated the water supply system to the unit, the next step is to come into the unit and we want to open up faucets. This happens to be a 2-story unit. It's really critical when you're working on a 2-story unit to evacuate the water from the top floor so that you can service those pipes without having residual water run down the inside of the wall. You open up all the faucets on the bottom floor, and this allows a vacuum. And I don't know if you can hear it, but you can hear a gurgling. That lets you know the water from the top floor is draining down and exiting in the bottom floor so that we can work on these pipes with the minimal residual water. Okay, we're here to address this leaky tub spout. You can see it down here, it's dripping. The reason it's dripping is there's a cartridge in here that goes into a valve that has seals on it. And those seals, over time, our water is so hard that minerals get accumulated in the valve body, and as you turn the valve on and off, eats up and corrodes all those rubber seals to the point to where they start leaking. The remedy is take and replace the new cartridge, but since we have a bunch of issues with caulking being pulled away, we're going to replace the whole trim kit on this today and reseal everything, because these are big time causes of leaks downstairs. Water seeping by where the silicone is not holding there, as well as on this here, this is loose. Water can get past that and drain down below. So we're going to replace the cartridge, fix the leak, and then we're going to do the whole trim kit and reseal everything so that we can make sure we have 100% seal with no water. Okay, so the tools you're going to need for this job are pretty simple. You need a screwdriver, a putty knife, cartridge puller, some Teflon tape. This is called Key-Tite. It's a potable water lubricant for whenever you're sealing anything to keep things friction from building up, and it's also an extra water leaking inhibitor. You'll also need a little bit of plumber's grease, and I'll show you what to do with that when we get to that point. And of course, the replacement cartridge. So you can see it's a Moen 1225B. Okay, so what we do first is we take this cover off of the handle. Just like that. And then we remove the handle. Like that. Pull out the trim. You got 2 screws here that hold the outer trim plate to the inner trim plate. Once again, putty knife, break the seal on the silicone, just like that. Now we're going to open this valve so we can allow the water that's trapped in these supply pipes downward out, so that we'll minimize the residual water that's going to spill out of this valve and possibly go down and into the wall. So we'll open it, and as you can hear, it's allowing the water to siphon out of the system down to the first floor. Okay, sounds like we're pretty much evacuated. So the next step is ready for lock. Okay, so the next step is there's a little retainer clip right here that needs to be removed. Now the new cartridges don't come with replacement retainer clips. So you have to be very careful not to drop it there or down the drain. Okay, I always put something down the drain whenever I'm working on something like this, just to keep it from falling down and not being able to be recovered and possibly causing a clogged drain down the future. So that being said, that's all we can do. Now we pull the pin, and like I said before, they don't come with replacement pins, so you need to be very, very careful. Make sure you don't drop it down into the wall where you can't retrieve it. Okay, once we have the retaining clip out, now we can pull the cartridge. Just grab it here, give it a little tug, comes out. Okay, now what I was explaining before is there's seals all the way around here, here, and here. There's also internal seals. And usually it's the internal seals that go bad in these, that allow them to keep dripping. Because that's where the water with the calcium mineral deposits flows through. And every time you activate this by pushing it in, pulling it out, it's like sandpaper on those seals. And it just slowly erodes them over time, and it causes a leak. And then if you'll look closely at the valve body, it's been leaking for a while. There's evidence, mineral deposits, lime and calcium. So I'll take a piece of emery cloth. Sometimes you can find something that, just get creative. Wrap this around the end. And all you want to do is just get all the hard mineral chunks that come up without removing too much or scratching or scoring the body of the valve. So, okay. Next step is replacement cartridge. Same procedure. They make a tool. What? They make a tool to remove these and put them in that you can use if they're really corroded in there. Otherwise, I just use my channel locks. But they do make a tool that this screws onto, and that actually you can use to pull these out if they get sticky. But it wasn't necessary in this instance. So now I told you earlier that we needed some plumber's lube, and then I'd show you what it was for. We want to wipe a little bit on the inside of the valve body, as far as you can get your finger in there. And then a little bit on all the rubber seals, just to keep them from getting caught up and moved out of position when you put the new cartridge in. So then if you look at the cartridge, I don't know if you can see it, you have two tabs and then you have two open slots. The way this goes in is with the two tabs up and down, and there's a groove in the valve body that allows you to push those tabs in. Once you have the new cartridge in, very carefully put the keeper pin back in without dropping it down in between the wall. Sometimes a little bit of a side-to-side adjustment's necessary on your alignment to get it to go in. That's typical. And there we go, pins back in. And that's how you replace a 1225 Moen cartridge. Okay, we'll start down here on the overflow. It's pretty simple, just unscrew the screw. Remove the overflow cap. I always do an inspection on the gasket down here, and the gasket appears to be good. We can use our universal piece of Scotch Brite and just kind of clean the surface. In this instance, this cup has been re-ceramic coated, you can see. So we have to be very careful when we're cleaning that we don't peel that ceramic coating back to where it's not covered by the new overflow cover. So I'm just taking my time and working within the parameters that were where the old cap sat. Okay, that's about as good as I'm gonna get it without chipping in any of this new coating. Okay, so then it's just a reverse procedure. We got the new overflow cap and the new screw. Line it up. Start it. And then I want to tell you something that should be pretty self-explanatory, but you would be amazed at how many times I show up somewhere and I find the overflow like this with the vents at the top. Those point down. But like I said, you'd be surprised how many people think they go up. That's incorrect because they're there just to keep the water from overflowing in the tub. If you put them on the top, then the water has to raise over here, which is really close to overflowing, whereas if they're set at the bottom, then as soon as the water level heat reaches right here, it starts exiting, which will prevent the overflow. That's the whole purpose of this. Okay, so the next step is put a little caulking. And I don't worry about trying to be too neat in this step of it, and I'll show you why. I just want to make sure I get enough in there that I get it sealed and I'm comfortable with. It's not going to leak. Because what we do is we come back with our little handy dandy sponge. And voila, just like that, it's sealed. Now my recommendation is not to use it for at least 8 hours after you've recaulked, even though it only says 2 to 4 in the directions in there. I found that still after 4 hours somebody will go to clean or wipe their tub and smear the caulking, so I'd wait 8 hours before I used my tub. Okay, so now we're going to move to the tub spout. Same thing, all you need is a slotted screwdriver. Remove these 2 screws. You don't have to take them all the way out because there's just little brackets that it pinches against the wall on the inside that holds them, so you just loosen them. And before we remove this trim plate, because like I was saying earlier, this tub has been recoated. I like to take a razor knife and cut as close to the trim as I can. Well, this time it wasn't necessary, but a lot of times you need to cut all the way around it with a good razor knife to keep it from peeling back the fresh coating. Okay, the next step is we're going to replace the tub spout. And it's held on. This is called a compression tub spout. There's a set screw in here, so you just have to, it's kind of difficult to locate, so you'll have to bear with me. I'll do my best. Okay, I have it. Once you got it, I was able to loosen it enough that I can turn it and put it into view to make it easier. Okay, there we go. Just once again, this is a freshly recoated shower enclosure, so we don't want to rub our tools against the side and scrape or rub any of this fresh coating off, so we're being extra careful. And then this should just slide right off, just like that. And that's the old tub spout. It's pretty corroded. You can see what the hard water does to all of everything. Okay, so my trusty Scotch-Brite will just do a little, remove some of the excess caulking that's there. Here's a case where you might want to cut it with the razor blade so that it doesn't peel back farther. There we go. There we go. Just so that we don't peel any of that fresh coating off. Okay. Then we just, okay, once just the same process in reverse to install it. I'll get my Allen wrench in there and get it started. Sometimes you have to reach behind the wall and push that all the way down because apparently they didn't secure that arm in the wall correctly, so there was movement in it, but it's easily rectified with just reaching in there and holding it. So then we get this just till it starts to snug down. Once again, we're being careful not to scratch the surface of our newly resurfaced tub. Okay, we're starting to get a little tight. You don't want to go too tight in this step because you have to spin this down 90 degrees and you don't want to groove the pipe underneath there. So you only get it tight enough so where it just starts to bite. And then, unfortunately, you have to just have to feel down here and be patient and you'll get it and tighten it up. All right. One more quarter turn after it's tight. Okay, right, there's a quarter turn, so yep, we're getting tight. Then you stand back, look at it from the top, make sure it's orientated right, it's not crooked. It's just an aesthetics thing, but okay, and that's the tub spout. Put back on the Speedy plate. It's called a Speedy plate. It's used whenever you have to cut a valve in when there's been a shower in valve that goes bad from when the house was originally built, we'll say. They only put a 4-inch hole here to cover up. So whenever you have an after leak, after the house has been built several years down the line, whenever it occurs, you have to cut a bigger opening to be able to service the valve and replace it and everything. And so that's what these are. They're called Speedy remodel plates. And they're just for what they say, for doing essentially remodeling. Okay, so you have the 2 feature tabs. The 2 holding screws. So I go ahead and pre-start these. Just like that. And just like this. Okay. And I'll go ahead and run them in so I don't have to sit there with my screwdriver and run them in a little over halfway at least. We got a stubborn one. Getting everything in, then turn these. go slow. This isn't gotta be, you don't want to dimple the plate. You just want to bring it up to hold it snug and in place. There we go. So if you're not comfortable with your drill, I would recommend you do it by hand, because you don't want to over tighten these and put a big dimple in them.